Okay, I want to hit another story that kind of relates to changing America and very much changing America. It's a little bit of an update. So I told you in Dallas, where I am in Dallas, there was a trial this week, not a criminal trial, a civil trial. It was a battle between parents, these two parents, mom and dad, parents of twin boys, and the boys, the parents had shared custody. In fact, they had a what's it called? They have a kind of joint conservatorship, I think it's called, deciding the care for their sons. Well, the mother, a pediatrician, has decided that one of the twins, they have twin boys, one of the twins is really a girl. She is pushing the social transitioning of one of her twin boys to becoming a girl. The kid is 7 years old. We talked about the other day we talked about this on our show, talked about how the mother's saying, I'm not doing puberty blockers, which are horrific drugs, horrific things. She said, I'm not pushing puberty blockers for now. I just want support from my ex-husband for my efforts to socially transition James into Luna. She's given this boy the girl's name of Luna, dressing him as a girl going to school. The class has had a little sit down. Hey, everybody, remember how, little James here was a boy, now he's a girl. And they have allowed this little boy dressed as a girl going to school who tells his dad when he's with his dad, I'm a guy. I don't want to be a girl. I like being a guy. I act like a boy. I do boy things. I play boy games. But the trial ended this week. We talked about it one day. The trial ended, I think, actually the same day we talked about it. So let you know, the jury right here in the great state of Texas, fairly conservative, you would think, the jury essentially found for the mother. They rejected the arguments of the dad, basically. And I'll tell you what the jury ruled. I have a new friend in Dallas who's a lawyer who's kind of keeping me up to speed on this. To be precise, the jury was asked two questions. The first one was, should the joint managing conservatorship agreement, so that's between the two parents, the joint managing conservatorship agreement, be replaced with a sole managing conservator? Sole managing conservator. So the first jury question was, should it go from the two parents to having just one parent? To that question, the jury answered yes. The second question was, should the dad be the sole managing conservator? And the answer was no. So the jury never got asked the question, should the mom be the sole managing conservator? So technically, the judge doesn't really have the right to designate the mom as a sole managing conservator based on what the jury found. Because the jury just said, again, the first question the jury said, should the joint managing conservatorship agreement be replaced with a sole managing conservator? And they said, yes, there should be one. But then the second question was, the dad, basically his question was, should he, the dad, be the sole managing conservator? And they said no. Well, the obvious thing is, well, if they don't want the joint, they want one. The dad said no, the dad, then it has to go to the mom. So either way, it's a very bad outcome for the dad. Very bad outcome. And so I don't know, I'm going to keep you apprised of how this goes forward. It's unclear what the judge will do. But I want to turn to another topic about, I'm on this mode today. It's probably hard to tell. I'm in a mode of wanting to encourage you to be activists, to speak up for truth, to recognize strength is needed in this time in America. Strength is needed, clarity about the existence of truth, exposing what is wrong, speaking up for the ideas that created America, recognizing them, speaking up for them. This is vitally needed in America today, and in many, many, many realms of American culture, society, politics, and law. In this particular instance, this idea of this one child who's now apparently going to be continuing on social transitioning, the mom's eventually going to move toward puberty blockers, which I will just tell you, as I mentioned on the show the other day, to understand what these do. This kid, probably around the age of 11 or 11 and a half, the experts say that's the right age, they begin giving this kid puberty blockers so that his normal little boy body and body parts cannot develop into a normal adult male. I want you to ponder that. He's going to be an adult at some point, maybe he's going to say, I don't know how he got started in this crazy thing, but I'm a guy. He's going to have, as an adult, the body parts of an 11-year-old boy. He's not going to be healthy. He's not going to be normal. He's not, many other attributes and problems flow from these puberty blockers, but just that one alone. Think about putting yourself in that mother's shoes. She's deciding to literally destroy her son's potential to have a normal life as a male, and he's 7. And others who have examined his case have said he doesn't even meet the criteria for genuine gender dysphoria, confusion. And even if he did, which he doesn't, between 80 and 90% of young children, like this little boy, who have some issues related to gender dysphoria, between 80 and 90%, by the time they finish going through puberty, that dysphoria, that confusion drops away, and they are the gender they bodily are. This mother is so determined, and I'm telling you folks, I want to say, I think I sounded pretty harsh about her the other day, and I do feel very critical of her, but I will say, it's in the realm of possible that she actually thinks what she's doing is the right thing. I was so dismissive of her, just saying, she shouldn't have any custody of her kids. If she's going to do this to her son, they should just take the kid away from her. But she actually thinks she's doing the right thing, which gets us around to this theme of the day, that we need to be really clear in our country and strong and strident and outspoken about the existence of truth, about the idea that there are 2 genders. Just in this topic, we talk about many other topics, but there are 2 genders. There are 2 sexes. There are males and females. If you are an adult and you wish to change genders, change sexes, no one in America is going to stop you. In fact, the left will fund you, they will celebrate you, they'll give you a coming out party. If you want to change your sex when you're an adult, that is a whole different question, and it is within the realm of the idea that we respect the right of people to live in freedom. If you're an adult, if you're 7 years old, you don't know jack about anything. You don't know anything. You may know because your mother is hassling you all day about telling you you're a girl and dressing you like a girl. And at the time and the age when parents should be forming their children's values, their perception about themselves, their perception about life, what it means to be a boy, what it means to be a girl, how to live life, all the things parents try to pass along to their children. She's spending her time trying to convince her little boy he's a girl. But the reason I say she may be in some senses innocent is because this whole conversation about the LGBTQ rights, and they are very, very demanding, very monolithic. They bond. LGBTQers say, whatever we stand for is the only thing that's right. Everybody else must surrender to us, must salute to our agenda. So you have a mother who's heard this in society. She doesn't hear much pushback from the conservative side, or she may not choose to read it. I'm getting at, she might think that she's doing the right thing, but even if she does think that, even if she does, there was a jury of 12 people. There's a judge overseeing this trial who seemed to be very friendly to the mother's side of the case. These are jurors who could have come back just to said, you know what, yeah, you got to keep this joint thing in place. They could have come back and said that, but they didn't. And so this is a jury at least partly swayed by all this testimony about this little boy's mental state, his status of his dysphoria, the allegation he's got dysphoria, he really is a girl. It's a pathetic state of affairs. And I'm really sorry for this boy and his family, because I don't know how he'll ever get his life back. But I want to go forward and talk about this a little bit more, too, about in this era of the need to stand up and fight and speak up. There is a school in Illinois, the state of Illinois. They have begun something. It's actually become statewide starting next July, a statewide agenda in which young children, preschoolers, are now being given LGBT indoctrination. Little children. Part of the curricula in Illinois is being started, and there's one particular school district. next year is going to be in all of the school districts. And this is a curricula which essentially is teaching young children as young as preschool the idea that, number one, this school district says, and I want to run through some of the things that happens to parents when parents speak up to the school district and say, hey, this doesn't really seem age appropriate, and my kid's 4 and he's coming home talking about sex. I mean, really, he's 4. So there's begun to be some pushback against this transgender LGBT agenda, going in the public schools in Illinois, and some of the parents are starting to say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem quite right. So here are some of the answers the parents are getting from the school district as their young children come home talking about what they learned about in sex in school today. Okay, so to start with, the school district claims that teaching transgenderism to preschoolers is age appropriate. So you're going to start telling young kids who are impressionable, they're young, they're babies, they're in preschool, and they're young minds that need to be formed and shaped and taught and influenced and cared for by people who have their head on straight. Instead, these kids are going to go to these schools and learn transgenderism. And they're saying the school district describes this as a robust, thoughtful, and age-appropriate curriculum for use in schools. And they go on to say, preschoolers were told things like this transgender teen book involves a person named Jazz. You may have seen the book, I'm Jazz, or Call Me Jazz, or something. It's a book of about a teenager claiming to be transgender. Preschoolers are told they can be just like this transgender teen celebrity named Jazz Jennings. And that transgender just means you have one sex's body, but a different sex's brain. No science behind that, to be clear. No science backs that up. This is just advocacy from the left becoming the curricula in public schools. So these kids are taught things like, yes, and the Heather has 2 mommies, now very trendy, popular, taught this idea that if you have 2 mommies, they're just called lesbians, and that just means that 2 women who love each other. Well, obviously not. Obviously not. Lesbianism is not about 2 friends who love each other. They're about women involved in personal human intimacy with each other instead of with men. They are just avoiding or trying to blur the idea of sex and love. The school district is so determined to push the LGBT agenda into the hearts and minds of preschoolers that they define the curriculum in a way that bars parents from being able to opt out of this education. So in sex education in Illinois, parents can say, we're going to opt out our kid from the way you're teaching sex education because we don't like us. They want to opt out. The school district went out of their way to write the curriculum in a way that carved that possibility away, deprived parents of the ability to take their kids out of the transgender indoctrination camps in which they are functioning. They also try to keep the parents in the dark about when the classes will happen, so you don't know what day when your kids goes to school. Other things, all this transparency thing apparently has nothing to do with when they're teaching kids this stuff in the public schools. The public schools are deliberately not letting the parents know. They now have people in the community who help form this curricula for these babies, declaring at public hearings they feel unsafe, that they are just so surprised that people are upset about their transgender agenda for preschoolers, and these people are now using the left-wing words, we feel unsafe in our own communities. It's terrible. People are actually daring to criticize what we're saying. So then the parents went back to school and said, can you please make this at least so we can opt out if we don't want our kids learning this in the public schools, to which the Illinois public schools said no. And so my point to you, my very fine friends, my listeners, is there is no place in this country for squeamishness, silence, surrender, letting the left win, because everything they do is destructive to America. The leftist agenda in this country, everything they do is destructive. Everything is designed to carve out parents' right to train their children, to carve out parents' right to explain what they see as marriage based on their religious faith, based on what the Bible teaches them. The agenda of the left, just infesting the public schools, is designed to carve parents, their role in shaping their children's views, out of the picture, and to indoctrinate kids as young as preschool with the idea that you might be transgender. Lots of people are. You know, you look like a boy, you are a boy, but you're really a girl, so you can just change. Here, we'll help you. You need every single person in this country who gets it, who understands the issue, to be outspoken, to go to your local school board, to understand what your school district is doing, to run for school board yourself, to be outspoken, to comment on social media, write columns, put things up on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever it is you're active. There is a sense, back to this mother and many others, where you wonder, do they just not even know there's an other side to this? Do they not even recognize that millions of Americans are not on board for this agenda? They don't believe it is true. They don't believe it's good for children. They don't believe it's healthy. But you have to be willing to speak up, because at least in Illinois, in this case, some parents are speaking up.